But what we're going to do here is we kick off the life insurance super chat to start by doing some introductions. And so we're going to start with Samantha, then Tom, Manny, Mike. As I said, though, I'm Dustin Yoder, CEO of Sureify. Very fortunate to be a part of this conversation on the life insurance super stack as we explore the way the world is changing, as well as where we're going. So, Samantha, we'll start with you.
Hi, Dustin. Thanks for having me. Hi, everybody. My name is Samantha Powell, and I am the Life Annuity and Health Marketing Lead for EIS. And most of you might recognize me as my previous role at IPO Group as an analyst for the life and annuity space. Very excited to be with EIS now as a technical company and to be able to have this conversation about the super stack. Thanks again.
Tom?
Oh, I'm Tom Benton. I thought I was going to go last.
Sorry. No.
I can introduce myself. I'm Tom Benton. I'm Vice President of Research and Consulting at Novarica. I've been with Novarica about 7 years. And prior to that, I was CIO at Navy Mutual Aid Association. So I focused on the life industry when I first started with Novarica, but the last 2 years I've been working a lot with our vendor community, helping to provide them with advisory and consulting services.
Manny?
So I'm Manny Lirio, and I lead the customer acquisition at Vantis Life. I've been in the insurance space for over 15 years, helping companies acquire new customers, pretty much leading up the marketing and sales and user experience for Vantis Life. Vantis Life is a life insurance carrier company that has been around for over 77 years. We're part of the Penn Mutual family of companies, and we sell life insurance and annuities for people of all stages of life. And we're very excited to be here today talking about our digital experience as part of the super stack.
And thanks for having me today. This is Mike Reeves with Hannover Re. I lead our marketing efforts for HR Reflex, which is our automated underwriting system. And I've been involved in automated and accelerated underwriting with Hanover for the last 13 years.
Well, wonderful. And without further ado, we are going to pass it to Tom here. I will say, just for I know some of you might be experiencing a little scratchiness. So all the speakers, while you're not talking, if you can go on mute, there's always, life in the fast lane here. There's internet issues that cause squeakiness. So please, everyone, go on mute. And Tom, if it's you, we're going to bear with it here. But yeah, good luck. Without further ado, Tom, take it away.
Okay, well, thanks again for inviting me and all of us to be here today. Looks like my slides disappeared. Oh, there we go. Again, I'm Tom Benton with Novarica, and Dustin asked me to join today to talk a little bit about the technology stack that's used at life insurance companies. And I want to talk about 3 basic issues with that stack. And by the way, these slides will be available. I'm going to go through them very quickly, so don't bother with trying to read them all or write everything down. We'll certainly make them available to you. But the 3 issues I want to talk about the life insurance stack are customer centricity, technical architecture, and for lack of a better word, the third thing is going to be about information decoupling, and I'll explain what I mean when I get there. First of all, customer centricity. A lot of the life insurance stack has been built to be very transactionally focused. So it's been focused on policies, on claims, on billing, tracking those policies through the system and through the life cycle. Whereas the customer view is what a lot of internet companies, retail, all other industries have been focused on for many, many years. And in our industry, we're starting to get focused on the customer view. But the stack wasn't built for the customer view. So that's become an issue. The industry's had a legacy of having this transactional view, and the systems in the life insurance industry especially were built very monolithically to handle policies and the life cycle. And that led to, as the systems evolved, there was a need to learn more about the customers. A common problem at life insurers is that a customer may have multiple policies. And at times it's very difficult to present an overall view of that customer. They may have an annuities policy or annuities product along with a life insurance product or several of them. They may be the actual owner of that policy. They may be a beneficiary. There are a lot of elements that go into it, and a lot of insurers have difficulty doing an overall view of the customer. And that's really what's needed these days, is to present a better customer experience. It's common to call a life insurer, and even today, and ask about your policy, and have them have to go to multiple systems to get you information about your multiple policies. So this is our core systems map that we developed at Novarica many years ago, and it's held pretty true over the years. And what it features is the policy admin system at the core. So we have core systems that can include claim systems and billing, and typically in the life insurance stack, that's all one solution. Then you've got the agent portals and the front end systems, customer portals over to the left side of this slide. And over to the right, the back end systems like general ledger, reinsurance management. And then you also build in analytics up at the top, and then document management down at the bottom. So a lot of systems and a lot of architectures at life insurers can be mapped directly onto this system. In fact, in my previous job, that's what we did to better communicate it to the board and others. Well, if you break down each of these components into the main functions that they have, you get a chart that looks a little bit like this. And never mind trying to understand this. The whole idea behind this particular chart is that each of those systems has a number of functions that they follow. So that can lead to our next thing that I wanted to talk about, is a technical architecture. If you break all those down and you map them back into the core systems map, it starts to look like something that might be services that all could be combined together to develop a system that would do what policy admin systems and all the technical architecture a life insurer would do. So it becomes a stack that's more like a microservices stack, which what this chart is meant to represent. If all those functions are microservices and they're all working together in the environment, then you can build a system where you can use the best of certain services. You can use outside services that are not part of the technical architecture within your walls. A lot of possibilities open up, and that's what's been happening on the technical side, outside the industry and then inside the industry. And then this is what I meant by information decoupling. You get your core systems that have always been around at life insurers, but there's been, especially in this year with the pandemic, a big focus on digital channels. It's not possible, or it's very difficult these days to have one-on-one interactions in person with the customer and with your, and in terms of going and visiting them, the agents sitting down with them, or filling out a policy or an application to send in, that sort of thing. And that's been the way the industry's worked for many years. But digital approaches have become much more important this year, and a lot of life insurers are considering, how do I put a digital front end onto my large core system, and other ways to develop that capability. And then data. Data has become more important this year as well, and it always has been important, but the data has always been locked up in the core systems until the last few years. Now, with data decoupled from the core and being analyzed separately, outside data can also be brought in outside of what's contained in the policies and the demographics of the customers. So you've got this view, and this view can lead to a view like this, where you've got your core systems that you may not be able to change them. It's very difficult to change out life core systems. So those dark blue squares and blocks may be what you're going to deal with for a long period of time. But the other ones, the lighter blues, are systems that are digital systems that enable digital customer experiences, and the lighter blue deal with data. So if we take this view of the stack, we start to see ways that we can take a microservices approach, we can be more customer-centric, and we can also decouple those systems so that we can make the best advantage of our digital and our data. So that having been said, and my 10 minutes of allotment nearly up, this would be the kind of approach that might be the stack into the future, is sub-functions that are microservices that work together to provide a really good customer experience on the front end, efficient operations on the back end, good analytics, and the ability to basically efficiently operate the insurance and in an innovative way, operate your insurance carrier functions. So that's, as I catch my breath, that's what I wanted to share today. Hopefully that tees us up for a discussion about what that super stack can look like in the future. So
Tom, can you go over every single box in that last slide? Do you mind really quick?
Sure. If everyone would please cover their right eye. And
yeah, exactly. Just 1 minute, please. No, Tom, thank you so much. And we are honored to have you. And I was really excited to have you go over that, because as I look at the super stack of the future, which is a future, object here, or North Star, I just get excited to say, where are we today? And I would say in the life insurance space, it's hard. There's a lot of legacy built in there. There's a lot of things. And so even as people are trying to build out new life insurance companies, et cetera, there's a lot of questions. I get, you get a lot of people calling you saying, well, we want to build a greenfield insurer, or we have all this old stuff. How can we go completely greenfield? The next question is, what are all the components? What do I need? And so, once again, that's a good place. I say that's, the years of work put into what you guys have put together. But we're going to transition now, not to say that your work wouldn't take hours to digest, and I think it would be wonderful. And just so everybody knows, you can have access to those slides for internal discussions. But we're going to take a little shift here, and so why I say that, I have spent a lot of time thinking about the life insurance super stack as well, just from a different angle, right? So my lens is much more about insurers looking to evolve into 2020, 2021. And obviously we've been watching this over the last, for Sureify here, about 4 years as the market's been changing. So I wanted to add a different lens onto this discussion about, what's the super stack? What are people really talking about, thinking about? Although every component that Tom mentioned is required, right? So it's just a different view and a different focal point. So just to go over it really quickly, because we're going to use this slide or this concept to talk about, in the next 30 minutes here is, I want you to digest this. So when you look at it, the way I've digested it or sectioned it up is actually quite different than core systems. So for example, at the very bottom of this stack here, it says operations. So much of what Tom mentioned, I'm kind of putting there because that's not Sureify's focus. Just so we're clear, we're not a policy administration system and all of reinsurance and all the things you can think of that are super important. That's not our view. What we hear is a lot of people talking about the transformation of the top level of the stack, methodologies, as well as ways of conducting business that have now become extremely important. Let alone with COVID taking place, that was only gasoline to that fire. So starting at the top, the questions that I want to bring forward are in the super stack, or the comments I want to make derive from this. So let's start from the top. Market. What systems do you have to market into new markets, or point of sale solutions, or advertising? Not just billboards and TV ads and print, but rather, what is your digital stack on the market side? The second is education. Underneath that, once someone hits, what are all the layers you have to educate that customer as they go from awareness now to exploration of purchase? So in the old world, this is that form, your needs analysis, but now what is the technical things you're offering to be able to educate? The third one is selling. Can you sell omni-channel through your agent, right in front of them, digitally through your agent, through your call center, direct to consumer through your website, or even point of sale, so someone going to another application and buying? Fourth here is servicing. Can your customer service from anywhere, anytime, for anything, right? That, you naturally think of payments, but then you go to beneficiaries, checking policy, all the way down to allocations, loans. I mean, you name it. Can they do that digitally, and or do they expect that? Claims, claims, very rare or more rare in the life insurance space. How are they doing that? Can they do that digitally? Do we have a good process that builds trust and a horrible time, as well as guides them efficiently? Get into configuration. Can you configure all these parts of the platform? Can you configure anything both top and bottom so that you're not spending millions a year on service work to configure? Data. Is all of this producing every ping of the server, driving data into your systems, new data, old data, third-party data, you name it, creating a data lake or layer that which goes to the next point. Can you analyze all that? So everything here is a building block. It's all connected. Can you analyze, dice, and learn, test? And then you have rules. Can you create logic functions, whether that is underwriting, but also in your applications based on learnings you have? Lastly, does your stack include, third parties? Are you doing it yourself? Is there a growing list of third parties that can easily integrate? And are you adding them so you're best in class in real time and have real-time results? And then you have microservices and APIs. Is every system, like Tom just went over, enabled with APIs, microservices, etc., to be able to, number one, swap out any system so it's not a monolithic view, but secondly, add into any third-party system, like when Sureify comes in, right? What can we pull from data-wise and push back and forth from service calls? And then the last part, ironically, was, in my mind, a lot of what, like we just saw with Novarica, all those things underneath actually sit under there, but obviously I'm in a lens of like, this is the new world up above, and how are we playing into that? So that's the super stack overview from my view. I had a little less time here than Tom, but let's take a turn here for the group, and let's ask some questions. Let's get the smart people talking now and keep me quiet. So I got a question for the group here, and I'm going to start with Samantha. What do you find is the most important layer as the emerging super stack in 2020 and beyond? What's the key for these life insurance? Like, where should they focus first as they look at becoming a leading 2021 life insurer?
So, I think let's start off with the fact, and I think Tom mentioned a little bit, you did too, about legacy. We know that more than 80% of carriers, I believe my stats, about 85%, are still reporting that their legacy systems are keeping them from transforming. That's a huge percent. You would think by now that would have changed. But in order to build this stack, honestly, it really has to start at the core. I know that, policy administration systems, it's hard. People can have 20, 30 different policy administrations in place. But if you don't start at the core, you're not going to be able to create that personalized super stack for yourself. And let's be honest, at this core of who you are, this is where insurance carriers have the opportunity to create personalization and competitive advantage over the others. That's the great thing about this super stack and making it your own, right? So when you think about that core layer, you need to think about the things that you mentioned, the ability for that core system to have open APIs, microservices, cloud. Those are all kind of key to being able to create this super stack. And if you can start it at the core, then everything else is going to be that much easier. Your stack's going to be easier to develop, easier to maintain, and the flexibility of being able to pop things in and out of the stack as we evolve. When they talk about the next normal, or the new normal, well, let's think about it as the next normal. The next is going to come after that, and the next is going to come after that. And you have to be able to fluctuate your stack in order to meet those needs as they change going forward.
Thank you, Samantha, for that. I do want to just comment to everyone, please ask your questions. We'll get to them, but use the chat bar where we're going to save them up and ask them and report and assign them to people as we go. I want to ask the same question. We have one, full digital insurer here on the line. Manny's here. They've made some big transformations. And I want to ask that question to Manny as well, though. As you look, you have your specific role, but you think about, the most important layer or for your team, what has it been, or maybe a couple layers that you find key to 2021? What's the layer that's enabling the key to the future here?
So it's really boils down to yes, you do need to have a strong core. You need to be able to have your APIs, but you may have the strongest functioning operational system that could process your underwriting, manage your policies. But if you don't have any customers flowing in, and customers being direct to consumer like Vantis is, or working with agents like we do as well, and a place where people could easily and friction without any friction come into your portal and begin the process where there is, you begin your education and then you do your remarketing. And again, I'm putting on my customer acquisition hat here in a way, but you need to have a way to capture the applications and have a good underwriting rules engine behind it that then is able to provide real time, because today's customer, whether it's an agent or the consumer, they're used to some kind. There's a new expectation, and I think it's something that companies like Amazon has done, right? That you are able to go to a portal, look to see what it is that you're looking for, and say, I want that. Click a few buttons, and then you get an answer. So you need to position your company and have the right components on your stack. So it's really hard to say, that you need one over the other. You really do need a complete suite. But in my view, it all starts with just like in your diagram there. It all starts with that top level, the marketing. How do you get people there? How do you acquire them and getting through the process? Because most companies still do have that legacy system that could still process, but you need to be able to capture them first. So you did need to work on that front end and work on so that, to me, that is the crucial piece of that cog in that one piece.
Well, you led me to a good transition to the next question here, because I guess to your exact point here, Manny, I guess I want to ask the group, do we see the focus changing from the bottom to the top, right? Because I'll think even 4 years ago, you walk in, when we really got going here at Sureify, you walk in, the conversations are always about your legacy systems. And I think of those largely as more bottom stack. Do we see a legitimate, or call it, is it just in word, or do we see a big focus change in the the bottom of or the top of the stack changing? And I'm going to ask Mike, because Mike's on the front lines here at Hannover Re, working with insurers as they set up accelerated underwriting, et cetera. We work with Mike, and so I know a little bit about that, and I know he's always on the front lines and been for years. So Mike, what have you seen? And have you seen changes here from, like, called a bottom of a stack to top of stack perspective? You're on mute, Mike. Sorry.
That's going to be the tagline for 2020, isn't it? You're on mute.
You're right. You're right.
I think that really from what we're seeing is based on my lens, being focused on automated underwriting and working with a reinsurer. But certainly everything is painted with the brush of the pandemic this year. So we're seeing really a focus more towards the middle of the stack, and carriers realizing where they may have thought they had automation before, they're really being thrust into it and trying to figure out how to navigate this pandemic in a much more digital manner than they had before. So we're seeing plans that may have been 6 months to 18 months down the road being put into place. And I think that's been good, because I think carriers have realized they can do more things than they thought they could, rather than a conservative phased approach to these things. They were forced to roll them out quickly, and I think that largely they've seen the results and done a good job with that. So we're seeing more focus towards the middle of the stack, more focus on what additional real-time data can you get, and how are you going to ingest that, and how are you going to make decisions around it, at least from the underwriting lens where I see it.
Okay. No, thank you. Anybody else have any comments they want to make there?
Well, just to add on to what Mike said, it's been that kind of year where for many, many years, insurers were especially life insurers, very reluctant to do large projects, do updates to their core systems. It's running, it's working, just leave it alone. It seemed to have been the mantra. And then with the work from home, emergency really that happened in March, there was great confidence that they got because they were able to make that transition very quickly. They were able to get back to their large projects and do them remotely very quickly. And there's definitely a feeling among life insurers that we talk to that more is possible. So the next step was, well, we've got to take some of these manual processes and these in-person processes and turn them into digital and use digital channels. So from your stack, they were working on the top of the stack and working on those digital channels, digital enablement of their internal processes even. And I think going into 2021, there are a couple trends. One is they're going to be doing shorter planning cycles. So that means larger projects are going to be a little bit more difficult to get approved and put into place. So the top of the stack and the middle of the stack, the data side, the data type configuration, all those things that you had in the middle, they're going to be, I believe, will be the big focus next year, and will lead toward the goals. I believe Samantha might have mentioned earlier, having the right goals, putting the right goals in place for having a better digital customer experience, and also being able to better enable your back end so that you're more efficient with your products.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks, Tom. I'm going to move on to another question. I mean, here's the big question. Can a life insurance really be fully digital? We talk about digital stacks. We talk about this. Can a life insurer achieve 100% digital capability? I'm sure that's there's an objective technical answer or technical meaning to that. But I want to ask, Manny from Vantis, I mean, you guys, from what I know, have really been pursuing that. I mean, can you have 100% digital platform and system? Is that possible? You're on mute, sorry. It's going to be, yes, you're right. It's going to be the same.
Yeah, so with time, effort, and money, anything is possible, right?
Okay.
But yes, I mean, it's not something that could happen overnight, but and it didn't for us. It's been, we decided to go fully digital about 4 years ago. So it's taken about 4 years to become fully digital, maybe 2, but then 2 more to work out all the kinks and get everything working in concert, every part of the stack. So yeah, it is possible. It's just some companies will suffer more frustration than others, depending on their systems. But you have to think about that every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end, meaning that you have a legacy system that wasn't there before and you built it. So you have to sunset it and build a new one, and be able to come up to something to build a digital system that is able to acquire customers, service customers, work the underwriting, and even communications. And today's environment, it shows that is just something that is needed. Work from home protocols, agents not being able to meet face to face, everybody on Zoom meetings, webinars, and the likes. This is the norm. So you, if you're not digital, then you're not part of the norm. How are you gonna send your customer? If your agent is not there to present them with an application, what are you going to do? Send them something in the mail and wait a week for them to get it, and then sanitize it and make sure that is okay to open, and then sign it and give it back to you in the mail. So next thing you know, you're 3 weeks just to fill out an application. So you have to be fully digital. You have to be able to have the tools in place. And that extends to your communications, the way you keep your customers abreast. I talked about Amazon setting the expectation that the minute you place your order, that you get an email saying, we got your order. A little bit later is we processed it. It's on its way. You're gonna get it in 2 days, and then they give you a tracking, and everybody's on their phones.
2 days. Which one are you paying for? I want 1 day. Okay. I want
well, Prime used to be next day, right? But we know that with everybody home, it's now anywhere from 24 hours to a week.
Oh, they're not going to like to hear that. I bet you they're listening in. Manny, and I want to. I think those are some great comments, and you mentioned something, and I have another question. Like, what do you tell the companies, the CEOs, the distribution arms of traditional agent-backed company or agent driven companies? I think you're talking about agents. You explained an experience that I think none of us ideally want, with the mail going back and forth, etc. But what is the what do you tell a company that has that setup that's been very successful, and they are successful, but like, how does the super stack come into that, and is there a way to mitigate, I'll call it the internal conflict, or what we all know as channel conflict, with a super stack? Like, what does a super stack do in that situation?
So look, there's agents distribution, and there's people that direct to consumer distribution, and it's not one over the other. There's some people that need to talk to an agent, and some people that want to do it themselves. So you gotta be able to do both. And agents, you're not gonna disrupt your agent distribution, but you're only helping them with a digital super stack, right? Because now the agent is able to conduct business online. They're able to see the status of that business. They're able to service their customers better digitally. That you could even, as a carrier, you could send your agent distribution reminders of things that normally they would keep track on an Outlook calendar, per se, right? In the old days, or even on their desk on a piece of paper. Now they're able to you're able to push things that the agent, follow up with Dustin because it's his birthday. Make sure you send him a happy birthday. Remind him that a year older, that he needs to check his life insurance. So the digital stack allows better communication. And if you're not investing in your stack, then you're gonna fall behind, and somebody's gonna move that cheese away from you.
Yeah, Tom, Mike, Samantha, how are you seeing, call it, the discussions around this technology evolution, and then as agents come into that discussion? I think there's almost been this, well, too much tech, that threatens our agents. But where do you see, as you guys are consulting on technology, selling core systems and enablement technology, and then also Mike, with your underwriting, which affects both D2C, agent, etc. How much of that conversation is relevant today, or is that ship sailed and everyone's proceeding?
I would say the ship hasn't sailed, and everybody, I think we're still having this constant debate at the carrier level. And I think what's most important is that we've seen this shift to the consumer-centric environment, right? Carriers have reacted very well to the need of more digital tools for the consumer. But what they did in that shift from being agent-centric to consumer-centric was they left the agent behind. Now we're starting to bring the agent back into it. And it's, it's a company decision. The agents are younger. The older agent pool is moving out. And even that older agent pool has learned to use the digital tools more so than they ever have. So being able to give them the same experience as the consumer is the key. So it's that merging, but we should no longer be having that conversation at the C level that I can't do that because that's going to take food off my agent's table.
Right. Totally agree. Mike, Tom, how have you seen the agent come into that?
Mike, you're on mute. I think Michael's trying to make a comment.
Maybe.
I just added that statement that it's really building that omni-channel approach, so that and I agree with Sam that the agents were left behind for a period of time, but I think now it's more about combining and merging those things, as Sam said, and developing an omni-channel approach and allowing that agent to work with you in the manner that best fits his business and how he wants to deal with his clients. So whether it's just dropping off a digital drop ticket, or whether he wants to complete the entire application with his client on an iPad or on a mobile device. It's really about enabling the agent to be able to work with their customers in the way that they feel comfortable, so that they can continue and have the most sales and be as effective as possible. Yeah,
I only, for the sake of time, I'm going to keep driving a couple more questions. I want to switch it a little bit to talking about metrics and ROI. I think this is a really challenging subject as we look at these transformations. And what I wanted to understand is like how does management define what they want to get out of these big IT projects, small, big, etc. And what are the key metrics that you see being driven? I think you all have a different lens here. Is it ROI? Is it NPS? Is it just I call it sometimes like, we just need that, and then it's kind of a ridiculous statement, but also like it does feel like that at times. We just need that. We don't know. I guess what should happen before, and ultimately, like for the people on the call, what are the ROI metrics that you see being super important?
I'd say. Go ahead,
Tom.
Well, we at Novarica, we like to think in terms of 3 levers of value that insurers can gain profit from. One is increasing sales, and another is lowering the operational costs, and a third is lowering the risk level, so doing a better job with underwriting. Those 3 levers are emerging as ways for CIOs and others who are justifying these kind of projects to justify them and to measure them internally. A lot of the metrics in the past have been focused on the cost side of the equation, but a lot of cost has been driven out of insurers already, especially life insurers. That's all they've been able to really do over the past few years in the low interest environment is lower the cost, lower the cost, lower the cost. Now there's more looking at, since data and digital, well, especially data, is enabling better ways of doing underwriting. There's now an effort to look at reducing or increasing the gain that you get from lower risk. And then also sales, we mentioned the digital channels, and a lot of what Manny mentioned about Amazon, a lot of what they've done is created a very transparent process to the customer, and they've shown the customers really like that. And that's always been an issue with life insurers, to be able to peel back a little bit and give a status update to the customers, to the applicants for policy. How is their where's it at? When is it going to be issued? What phase is it at? Those are the kind of questions customers want to know. So those 3 areas, I think, are areas that lead to metrics, and the metrics are what are the base of developing an ROI for justifying these projects.
Hey, Mike, I put you on mute because I think you got some feedback, but I do want to throw this question to you. What are you seeing? How are you seeing to evaluate ROI?
Well, from our standpoint, certainly you're seeing. Can you hear me okay? Or do you have feedback?
Yeah, we can hear you. Just
okay.
Just the airplane in the back, it gets going. No one's kidding.
Really, from our lens in the underwriting aspect to the super stack, it's really operational efficiencies and how can they replace more expensive full underwriting with different data sources. However, that does come with a cost. I think a mortality cost. So I think we will get there as we add data sources, but certainly today you can't underwrite with the same mortality using fully digital data sources as you can with a fully underwritten policy with typical fluids and things like that. So it's really about how do you define where do you want to be on that efficiency frontier between accelerated underwriting percentage and digital data sources versus mortality slippage. So it's really a customer that's going through this digital journey and setting up an accelerated or automated program. They have to make those decisions at the outset and really monitor that business to make sure that they're hitting all of their targets in terms of underwriting at the point of sale to satisfy the customer journey and the agent needs, but then also on the back end to make sure that they are not losing the profitability in the business that they may have had otherwise.
Yeah, and I'm going to give both Samantha and Manny a chance to answer this. Do either of you want to answer, how are you both approaching ROI, and or like Manny, for example, how do you guys look at each one of these changes over the last, you said 4 years, but 2 years, how do you decide which one to do, and what lens is it, or what's the financial / ROI or metrics lens you guys look through?
As Vantis Life made a shift over into a direct to consumer, we look at, are we able to acquire customers faster, quicker, maintain a clear, transparent view and communication with them, and get them through the process a lot faster to decrease, the underwriting costs. We both accelerated underwriting or fully underwriting is important to set expectations up front, and then at the end of the day, are we producing enough revenue through that process to justify the need of fulfilling every single area of the company. And then there's just some things that customers expect that if you don't have, they just won't do business with you. So you have to, it may not be revenue generating, but customers today expect to be able to service their policy, update beneficiaries, look at their policy, print them out, do whatever they need at the end of the day. So that's after the fact, and you're not getting anything out of that other than a satisfied customer that will say great things about you and your company. So you need to be, so you can't just look at it from a dollars perspective. You have to look at it as a full picture of, if I invest in this, what is it that I'm getting? So you gotta look at all the metrics that go alongside that.
And I think the only thing that I'll add there is, there are short-term metrics and there are long-term metrics. You have, long-term metrics go as far as your experience and being able to calculate the experience and the improvements or not within the experience. And then you've got your net promoter scores. Think about this in terms of, your minimum viable products. You've got to be able to measure in increments to make sure you can make the changes before you're too far into something specific. So everything else everybody said plus that.
Got you. We're gonna have to shift here to some questions that we've had come in. I think some of one of the questions here aligns with another one of my questions, which is about the key challenges. I think we've talked about a lot of benefits, metrics, etc. I think there's a huge. It sounds easy. The words of let's make the change, let's have a perfect super stack, everything microservice enabled, everything perfect for the consumer and for the agent, the most advanced policy administration system, go down the list, right? Like this all sounds great, but what are the challenges for that, number one, for approaching that, and where you guys see the biggest challenge? Secondly, if you could talk about the challenge, and you see here that there's a question about not only what's the key challenges, but also as you go through the process, where do you see the big challenges, like from sale to issue or claim to payment, etc. If you could get a little, call it macro and then micro on those challenges. I think it's a good question. It's a big question, right? But I think we can start by asking, if you had to name what's the biggest challenge. What would you say? Data.
The biggest challenge is data, no matter what direction you look at it. The sales to issue versus the issue to claim, the underwriting, no matter where you look, data is the biggest challenge. The ability to get to the data, to collect the right data, to house the right data, and to use the data to make sound decisions. So for me, I think that, I'll give my one input, and I'm going to say that the biggest challenge for any carrier trying to utilize digital tools to their greatest ability to be able to get the best return on investment. Their biggest challenge is going to be using, or their ability to use, the data appropriately.
What about the other members here? What's causing all the pain to get this done?
So I'll take a stab at this and say that I think integration, and I'll talk about what I mean by that. And it's something you alluded to earlier, Dustin, that there's a lot of different companies that fit into the stack. Not one company offer an all-in-one solution. So how do you integrate one another and then get them talking, so that as you set out to create your super stack, you are fully integrated and get every single point communicating? How do you build it to work together? There's a lot of different APIs, a lot of different things that go into completing a beginning to end process. And so I think that that integration and communication piece is really where a lot of the pain will lie. And if you don't get it right and you don't get everybody talking together, you will experience great pain.
All right. Well, now you got to tell us how to solve that, because you just said, you basically let the cat out of the bag and said this is a big problem. I mean, you're doing it. You got a sentence or two on like how you've gone from maybe harder challenges there to like some resolutions there, because I agree with you there.
So I think it's what Samantha said. You set out to create a MVP, a minimum viable product, and you pick an area based on the data that you received or that you have that you see that has the greatest needs, and you start out there, and from that point then you could start expanding, and in a way we did experience some of that as we built out our systems but it could be overcome, and we did, and we have a good system that goes together pretty seamlessly and frictionless. So it's doable. It's just growing pains that we experience that I like to put out there for people to know that it's doable, but that's one of the things I feel that needs to be really looked into. You need to have a good team, both internally and externally. So work with your vendors, make sure that they have the right project management team on their end. But on your side, you also have to have a commitment that each area of your company will be able to delegate somebody to come to the table as you set out to build your product.
Yeah, I'll just add on to that. I think one of the key challenges for some companies is certainly company culture and how they've gone about these large projects in the past. You see different results of these projects depending on the companies and how they approach it. We recently worked with a company that transformed their entire process from front end to back, and they actually hired agile consultants to come in to sit in meetings and advise them on the number of people in meetings. Some of these projects are so large, you can have 30 or 40 people in a meeting and introducing themselves to each other for the first time in some of these big companies. So to work with them to make sure, bring down those numbers, make it smaller groups, make it quicker reaction, quicker thinking. So company culture is a challenge too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Mike just totally stole mine. Culture too, but I do agree.
Well, that's what you come in and help them do.
Don't tell my colleague Jeff Goldberg this, because he and I debate sometimes about whether data is more important or digital is more important. But I agree with Samantha. I think as I've looked at things over the last year or so, data is probably the biggest challenge from the technical side. But I think overall culture is the biggest challenge. And I think the challenge that's been addressed the most this year and where insurers have seen headway is what Manny's been talking about, the customer acquisition side, the digital side. I think we need to build on those successes that we've had this year and think about the culture that we want to have going forward and find ways to do a better job with the data. And that will be a formula for making 2021 and on a success.
Mm-hmm. No, this is this is, I know we're summarizing like what many of you are spending years doing, those on the call and also, you know, on the attendees, but also here. So I know it's a hard discussion to pack into a couple minutes here. You know, one of the things, you know, I guess one of the questions is from my side, is, you know, does one system beget the other? And Sam, I want to throw this one at you, where I think there's this question of like, do I have to start with, you know, call it policy admin, or can I start somewhere else? And this is a big question that people are asking, right? I come back to you here because I think we're talking about a lot of the top of the stack. You know, I'm not trying to throw a softball. Actually, I think, you know, do you see people that, I guess my question is, where do you think they should start? And do they have to start at the bottom maybe? And I want to know, because I think people are stuck with 20 systems at the bottom.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, having multiple systems is going to be it's the future, right? It's who we are. We're always going to have multiple systems. You're not going to be able, most people aren't going to be able to or want to put that kind of money into getting us down to a single stack. Do you have to start at the core? I think it's ideal, right, to start at the core. You want something that can be the hub, that can create that personalization I spoke about way early, and allow you to integrate in very seamlessly. That is API driven, that's completely modern, and doesn't have any legacy layers below it. However, you can start in the middle, but eventually that legacy backup, that core system that you have is going to crumble. It's going to cause more pains than it's worth. So you have to make the decision for today that if I'm going to move forward and I want to be that digital company, I want digital transformation, I want to be Vantis when I grow up, well, then you're going to have to start at the core. You're going to have to invest in that very modern API, microservices, core system, and then decide what are those key components. What's my strategy? What's that stack that I want to build for my customers and for my agents?
Right, and we see, and as a proof point there, I think what's interesting is, you know, ideally, you know, there's a question here about microservices and APIs, and have we seen that happen? I think what we find is that when we go in, you know, one way or another, if we're going to create, as we're all talking about, this ideal system that serves all parties, has real-time information, et cetera, has the data seamlessly interconnected and sortable and analyzable and you know, central points of data, we eventually, I'll put it this way, eventually today or tomorrow, we have to have access, call it service calls, in those areas. We have to have data that can be pushed and pulled. You know, when people work with us, right? You know, the question is, well, where do we put it? Well, we can put it either place. Ideally, you have APIs though, right? Or you have microservices, and that may be that we do one service call at a time, because we call it crawl, walk, run, because maybe they really know it's COVID. You know, we're in the land of COVID right now, and people need access to the information. So how do we get the best information to that customer through service calls? But we see it constantly. These systems, people don't throw away, largely they don't throw away core systems, right? They set up a new one and we run dual, you know, kind of with an API layer, we feed into a single system, right? We run them off, or, you know, and in some cases we migrate them, right? But, you know, there's a lot of keeping what you have and adding new is a lot of what we see, because it's a whole nother can of worms to just go with a single system. And, you know, it is about having connector, I call them, you know, plugs, male and female plugs that can go different ways, i.e. services. And we see slowly but surely, as Manny even described, about several years that it's taken them to get to kind of a premium spot. I think a lot of that has to do with just getting access or bringing systems to where they're accessible to other systems. And I think that's in some ways it should be a never-ending game, because we actually should always be adding new services, new data sources. The legacy game hopefully gets over with, meaning that you have your plug in there. But I do think, the longer end game is like, an insurer should be, I think mentality-wise, we should be expecting that everything has an in and an out, and we're going to swap out vendors as needed as people become best in class. Well, I think we're right at our time. It's 9:59. I always, my whole life is going over time-wise, but on these webinars, I try not to. So I just want to thank everyone for their time, for their effort, energy, and sharing experiences with everyone who joined today. Really, really great conversation, and we all benefit from your experiences. We, as everyone on the webinar knows, I mean, we're all human beings. We all have LinkedIn. We all have email, and things are accessible. And if we at Sureify can help anyone connect with another party, I always love to make sure that the good friends I have and the relationships we built, we can connect up. So I want to thank everyone for joining. I want to thank Manny, Tom, Samantha, Mike for your time today, and the group thanks you. And so we look forward to having you on again. So have a good day. Stay safe. Stay away from fires if you're in California. Stay away from COVID if you're anywhere in the world. And we will all talk soon.
Thanks, Dustin.
Bye.
Bye.